newspaper platforms from Punch to Vanguard to Daily Post to or every single platform, trying to find out what exactly is in the news and how it affects you and us as Nigerians and Nigeria as a whole. So there's a lot of things in the news this morning, and students in the federal government owned tertiary institutions will be the first batch of beneficiaries of the student loan scheme. The CEO of Nelfund, Akintunde Sawyer, stated this on Monday while unfolding the conditions that would be beneficiaries will be required to meet. If you've been following the news, you'd know that that 1.2 million beneficiaries have been listed, as the scheme will begin on Friday. That's the Nigeria Student Loan Bill will begin on Friday. So there's more details on that. We'll check that out in just a moment. Organized labor is back on the tripartite committee with talks on the minimum wage. There's been the back and forth with 48,000 naira, and then Nigerian labor saying that they were not even going to take 100,000 naira. So labor officials last week stormed out of the Zoom meeting with the federal government officials after the federal government proposed a 48,000 naira minimum wage. The decision to return to the table was taken by the joint meeting of NEC, of the Nigerian Labour Congress, and the TUC. So let's see what exactly will come out of that particular meeting, because NLC is saying that 48,000 naira is too little, and you can't blame them when you check out the realities and the purchasing power of the naira at the moment. It is some economists are saying that the purchasing power of the naira is weak at best. Looking at the current realities, what exactly the market is saying, what exactly commodities in the market is saying. Just in the news this morning, I saw this particular headline talking about food imports hitting over 3 trillion naira, over flooding and insecurity right here in the country. So when it comes to all that, you begin to wonder, what will 48,000 naira as minimum wage get a Nigerian? But on the part of the NLC, we've been talking about different ways that they can get what they need, as opposed to 615,000 naira that they're requesting for. They should also look for other ways to improve the welfare of the Nigerian civil servant or the Nigerian worker at this point. Because when you look at how much Nigerians spend, you look at feeding, that is about, for every 100 naira a Nigerian spends, 57 out of that naira goes to feeding. Then you talk about transportation, then you talk about housing, you talk about entertainment and all of that. So when you take out the welfare, when you ensure that the federal government does things to boost the welfare of Nigerians, if you look at the National Assembly, you see that there are lots of things that are taken care of. We look at feeding allowances. We look at sitting allowances. We look at wardrobe allowances, stationery allowances. These are the things that are given to the National Assembly. So when you have the welfare of a Nigerian properly taken care of, then a Nigerian can afford to be paid 100,000 naira when he knows his feeding is almost already taken care of. If you go to some government parastatals, you see that they offer breakfast, lunch, or breakfast to their staff. So when you see that some of these things are taken care of, then it begins to take off a lot of pressure from the government to pay monies in terms of minimum wage. When there's housing, you know that, okay, Nigerians are faring a little better, as opposed to monies entering their accounts in terms of salaries. Still in the news, we have the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, on Monday warning that the political crisis in Rivers State, if it's not checked, has the potential of destabilizing not only the Niger Delta, but affecting other parts of the country as well. So, former President Jonathan called on the River State Governor Sim Fubara and his predecessor and estranged political godfather Nyesom Wike to sheathe their swords. Well, let's see how that plays out, because it's one thing to call them out, it's one thing to say, okay, do this, do that, but it's another thing for them to follow. We all know that Nyesom Wike, he's been described in different media spaces as a very, very stubborn man who has a big ego, right? So when you see someone like that trying to butt heads with another governor of a state, there's bound to be issues that would abound. Well, we'll check all that out in just a moment. Senate leader Okpeyemi Bamidele has said that the establishment of state police will go a long way to addressing the insecurity across the country. He stated this in Abuja on Monday, issued by his media office, describing the current state of policing in Nigeria as ailing and dysfunctional. Well, I don't know just how well, whether we're ready for state policing right here in Nigeria. We keep giving that example. What if we had state policing and a Simfubara had that particular state police in his arsenal? Imagine how this particular drama in River State would have gone. All those people in the State House of Assembly, they're for Yenwe. At this point, well, we'll get to find out what Mr. Rufai thinks about this particular headline. Well, two students of the Lagos State University were hit by stray bullets outside the school campus at the popular students' residential area called PPL late yesterday. While the names of the students are yet to be known, likewise the identity of the shooter, it was reported that the victims were hit when they went to purchase food around 8 p.m. Again, security. What are we doing about the security in schools, right? What do we do about security in schools? Just last week, we saw some students who were ambushed and kidnapped from the university, inside the university. Why am I even going too far? In Abuja, right here, we had that situation last year where the Gwagwalada was hit and some people were taken, lecturer and students alike were taken as well. So it's a prevailing issue and we need to fight it head on so we can see the end of it. A one-time governor of Benue State and a contender to the national chairman of the PDP, Senator Gabriel Suswam, has said he harbors no do-or-die affairs for the forthcoming party elections. He stated that during the party's expanded caucus meeting held at the secretariat located at Makodi Otukbo Road on Monday. We'll find out just more details about Benue politics in a moment. Now, in a brazen attack, bandits struck in Abuja, abducting the family of a senior customs officer before noontime on Sunday. According to eyewitnesses, the bandits, numbering over 10, arrived at the residence of the customs officer at Shagari Quarters day about 11:30 a.m. and made their way straight to the compound. We're still seeing issues of banditry and abductions, kidnappings here and there. Hopefully we see the Nigerian police force, because it's their responsibility to prevent things like this. Because yesterday we were having a conversation with Mr. Larry, and he was talking about the fact that why were they even kidnapped in the first place? Why were they kidnapped in the first place? This is a situation that could have been avoided. And anyway, we'll try to we'll hope and pray that the security apparatus in Nigeria will be improved to the point where Nigerians are not seeing these prevailing issues of kidnappings here and there. Still in the news, Port Harcourt refinery is set to begin operations in July. According to the IPMAN, the new date was disclosed on Monday by the National PRO of IPMAN, Ukadike Chinedu, where 210,000 barrel per day Port Harcourt refinery may finally commence operations by the end of July after several postponements. Well, last year in December, we know that the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lokbobiri, had announced the mechanical completion and flare start-off of the biggest crude refinery in Port Harcourt. Well, we're hoping that we actually stick to this particular timeline that has been given so that things can actually calm down for us here in Nigeria. We know that once the fuel prices drop, then we can now see a way ahead for Nigerians. The Naira on Monday appreciated in the parallel market to 1,475 Naira per dollar, which is just a little bit up from 1,480 Naira per dollar last weekend. Similarly, the Naira appreciated to 1,468 Naira per dollar in the NAFEM, that's the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market. Anyway, these and many more will form the basis of our conversation. Well, in a very surprising turn of events, Air Peace has dismissed reports of alleged safety breaches in Gatwick in the United Kingdom, stating that ramp inspection issues were resolved by the UK Civil Aviation Authority, and the lead corporate communications of the airline, Mr. Stanley Olisa, dismissed the allegations in a statement made available to newsmen on Monday in Lagos. Yesterday, there was news that there were safety breaches, that the UK CAA had come out to touchlight some issues that Air Peace was in breach of. Well, they come out to talk about the fact that, well, they are not in breach of any safety issues. Well, we'll get more details in a bit, but for now, let's check out who said what. This particular story is by Kayode Fayemi, the former Ekiti state governor, who openly confesses that subsidy removal was all politics, that they know the truth. Really interesting what he had to say. Let's take a listen.
What President Jonathan is doing, which 10 or so years after, all the political parties in this country agreed with. They even put it in their manifesto. Subsidy must be removed. Subsidy must be removed. Subsidy must be removed. We in ACN at the time in 2012, we know the truth, sir. But it is all politics. What President Jonathan is doing, which 10 or so years after, all the political parties in this country agreed with. They even put it in their manifesto. Subsidy must be removed. Subsidy must be removed. Subsidy must be removed. We in ACN at the time
You know, in reactions to this particular audio, Nigerians really took, they were not excited about this. People, let me just check out some of the comments, right? This one said, when men talk like this, they have been schemed out of the system of politics. Someone said here, can you imagine politics, playing politics with the life of their citizens, just as he claimed already that they knew the truth at the time? Do they know the number of lives that were lost, lives that were destroyed because of their selfish interests? Well, it is well. Some people were saying, see how he is laughing. Well, I won't listen to any speaking out till 2031. Let's keep the focus. Everybody saying they did this and that to the citizens. Una go still do anything. Them go still do anything they won't do, and nothing go happen. They have weaponized poverty, and all of us go still follow them. Well, we're reaping the dividends of last year's politics. Well, I hope we have a better way to arrange this in 2027. This particular audio surfaced about Nnamdi Kanu. Can someone get him another set of clothes? It's really interesting that he's been wearing this since last year. Yes, this is since last year, the beginning of last year, where he was expedited right back into Nigeria. So he was in court yesterday, and he talked about the fact that the federal government has no right to try him. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I can never be tried in any court of law in Nigeria. That's what the law says. Anybody standing in trial or coming to try me is a terrorist. That's what their law says.
Section what, sir? As simple as that.
Section 2, subsection 3F of Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act. That's what it says. Any court considered to try me is committed an act of terrorism.
Yes.
Very clear. You cannot violate a treaty that Nigeria entered into and then come to try that very person. Is not done anywhere in the world. So you must be aware of that. So that is why there is all these ridiculous delays. That is what Supreme Court said. I did not jump bail. My home was invaded. They came to kill me and I survived. They came to Kenya to kidnap me, brought me back to this country and seeking to try me, which the law says cannot happen. You cannot violate a treaty that Nigeria entered into and then hope to stand on that illegality to conduct a trial. Is not done anywhere in the world. I have in my case. Nobody has, there's no exception. No exception whatsoever. That's what the law says. Section 12 of the Constitution, what does it say? Any treaty ratified by Nigeria becomes law. It's law. You cannot change it. It doesn't matter what they do. All these shenanigans is just pure rubbish. You never stand. Not with me. Okay. I believe in justice and fairness, that's all.
Nigeria signed to extradite, not to rendition.
All right, so really interesting what's playing out with Nnamdi Kanu at this point. There's another audio here from this particular case talking about the fact that he's defending himself in the Federal High Court in Abuja. Let's take a listen to what he had to say in court.
My lord, that the defendant has now applied for bail. Now, as I've said earlier, bail is a decision of the court taking into consideration all the conditions laid down in Muhammad Abacha v. State. At this stage, I am of the opinion that to make or take a stand on the bail application without first hearing and determining the issue that is glaring in the face, which is the absence of the defendant from the court since 25th of April 2017 until he was produced on the 29th of June. My lord, which was exactly what the Supreme Court did. They said that he did not jump bail. These criminals came to my house to kill me. That's what the Supreme Court said. This is in your own court, my lord. So I cannot understand, my lord, why my trial will be conducted contrary to the Constitution of Nigeria that said I must have free and unfettered access to my counsel. Is here, my lord, that the defendant has now applied for bail. Now, as I've said earlier.
All right. We still have Nnamdi Kanu in court. This is 4 years after he was taken into custody, and the Supreme Court has also granted him free to leave. Supreme Court declared him free to leave, but we're still seeing issues right here in the country. Some people are talking about the fact that, okay, what exactly is going on? We thought that after the Buhari's administration, we're going to see a release of Nnamdi Kanu, but we're still seeing him having his field day in court. Well, we'll get more details from Mr. Larry because I know he would know a lot more about this particular case. We'll get more details from Mr. Larry in just a moment. Yesterday, there was a conversation about Mr. Professor Yusuf rating this particular 1 year's administration, right? He rates the Tinubu's government, and he said it's been a year of deception, destitution, and hopelessness. That's what Professor Yusuf Usman had to say about this. Let's take a listen.
That the defendant
want in the last 1 year and from next week they will start telling us their propaganda. What have they done that has benefited the ordinary person? What have they done? In a span of 1 year, they have made millions more people back into multidimensional poverty. They have pushed millions more children into out of school because parents cannot pay for their school fees. They have put many more people hungry in 1 year. So what have you done? What have you done? I want government to tell us. Don't give me the story about, oh, they're just floating the dollar. It's all another deception. You increase the taxes, you hike the interest rate, and you borrow money thinking you'll prop the naira artificially. And you keep taxing everybody. This is exactly what he did, what the president did in Lagos. Tax, 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 tax. And the economic team, to me, honestly, look more like tax collectors than economists. Taxation does not grow economies. Only production does. They seem out of they're out of their depth, to be honest. The common man does not see the way out. The last year has been a year of nothing but deception, destitution, and hopelessness.
Well, the May 29th will clock 1 year that the president has been in office. What has he done so far? You have the opportunity to rate this particular administration. You can call me up on WhatsApp or a regular call 0700 010 961 961. Let me know what you think about this particular administration. What have they done so far? If you think that they're well on their way with some of the policies that they've been making, well, they're well on their way to make things better for the country, that there's renewed hope yet, well, go ahead and let your points be heard right here on the Voice of the People. I'll take a break and then we'll be speaking with Mr. Rufai Oseni in just a moment. Stick around. All right, you're welcome back. This is still the front page review on Voice of the People 96.1 FM. We're live on YouTube at Voice of the People Abuja. Voice of the People Abuja. Good morning, Mr. Rufai, and welcome to the show.
Morning, bless you. Yeah.
All right, let's begin with, the reports that Port Harcourt refineries may finally commence operations by the end of July after several postponements. I mean, we've seen
Until we see the
postponements.
crude, though, we will not believe it until we see the crude. Let's see the crude first.
We should wait. We should wait
Let's
until
see
we
the
see
crude.
it. All right.
Let's see the crude. When we see the crude, we'll believe it, sir.
Well, Mr. Rufai, if this does happen, if we eventually see the Port Harcourt refinery begin operations in July, are we going to see a reduction in the cost of the landing cost of fuel, or the pump per liter price?
Marginally, there's not going to be much difference. I think we've empirically calculated that many times on the show. There's not going to be much difference because they're still buying crude at internationally prorated rates. So let's not deceive ourselves. You can see what's happening with Dangote now. It still has to load up crude at internationally prorated rates.
All right, so I don't know why we're even excited about it then. Why is it then a game changer if the Port Harcourt refinery, if the commencement of operations in Port Harcourt refinery is not even going to affect anything? So why are we spending monies fixing it up if it's not going to make any difference?
The dynamics, job creation, creating an ecosystem for production, possibilities for petrochemicals and many other things, When you look at the value chain of petrol and all of that, what really brings the money is the petrochemical. When you have a refinery, crude, the margins are very fine, whereas the petrochemicals that really bring a lot of the cash. So there are other possibilities that when you extend it, you can, do a lot more. So that's what really brings it.
All right, we're having the student loan. 1.2 million beneficiaries have been listed as the scheme will begin this Friday. I know we talked about giving it a year or 4 or 5 to see repayability of the loans and all of that, but it's become a cause of concern. Who are the people that are going to benefit from this these loans? Is there going to be a very transparent process to ensure that some people are not benefiting and then the others are being disenfranchised?
So the taste of this also is in the execution. Let's see when the execution starts. We should go out there, be part of it, register, but let's see when the execution starts. If the execution is good, we'll see. If it's not good, if it's problematic, we'll also see it.
All right. Okay. We'll watch and see how that plays out. Now, in a surprising turn of events, electricity workers locked out the minister and issued a 14-day ultimatum. The National Union of Electricity Employees and the Senior Staff Association of Electricity and Allied Companies on Monday stopped business activities at the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Power here in Abuja. I mean, so far, I can say that this last weekend into this week, we haven't had lights. I mean, the band B, but I know that we haven't had at least 2-3 hours of light per day in my area. So you begin to wonder when the president is going to get the reports, the scorecard of the Ministry of Power. I'm wondering what it would look like.
I mean, that's the sad reality, yes, you. We can't deceive ourselves. And that's the reality of what we are grappling with. A poor economy, an economy in disarray, an economy in a lot of turmoil, and no power. That's just it. So, vis-a-vis all of this, you still have the problem of labor saying legislature must be returned to what it used to be before. So while you have all of that, there's still many challenges here and there. So it's a multi-pronged problem. It's a very multi-pronged problem.
Multi-pronged, but we know we can start ticking off some solutions if we at least start implementing, because we know that one of the major issues we have here in Nigeria is the national grid and just how old it is, the equipment that we have, especially in our electricity sector. Why do we not have a maintenance culture? Why do we not have that ability? Because you know that, Mr. Rufai, sometimes if you check their budgets, maintenance of these equipments they're pictured there. Every year there's monies that are earmarked for maintenance. Why do we not maintain it properly?
Yeah, why do we not maintain it properly? Because of corruption. Number one, very big factor. Number two, inefficiency in the system. So if we can solve all of those problems, then we can start to make a headway. But if we are not ready, then we'll never get anywhere. And those are the challenges we face. It's always a multi-pronged problem. Corruption, inefficiencies, and it bedevils everything. That's the stark reality.
All right, let's move on to another story here. Talking about the former president, Goodluck Jonathan. He lent his voice to the Wike and Fubara face-off, and he talked about the fact that it can destabilize the entire Niger Delta. Looking at just the economic importance of Rivers State, especially to the Niger Deltans at this point, I don't know what else can be done to prevail upon this particular situation, because if you have the president prevailing upon it and Wike doesn't step down, you have different stakeholders as well prevailing upon the situation, and he hasn't stepped down in this fight. I wonder at what end, to what end, at what point will this situation end?
I think we should tell Wike the truth. Fubara has shown that he wants peace, but a major determinant factor of all of this is Wike. If Wike is not ready to play ball for peace, nothing will happen. So people. So the earlier people learn and say, okay, let's tell Wike the truth, the better it is. That's just it.
All right. Hopefully the governance can return to Rivers State, because with all these issues here and there, governance is suffering and the people of Rivers State are suffering.
Definitely it will suffer. It will suffer. And they know it's suffering. And that's why I wonder when they say they like or they love the people. So they know it's suffering. They know governance is suffering. But in the interest of people, they can't just shield their swords. So it's sad.
All right. Organized labor has come back to the table to continue their conversations about minimum wage. Just wanted to pick your brain on this particular situation because I spoke with another analyst that we have on the show, and he was talking that Mr. Larry Oguego, and he was talking about instead of NLC focusing on the amount of money that has been paid when we already have 30,000 naira minimum wage that some governors are not even paying. So if you now say you want them to pay more, how about the implementation? How are you going to force the governors to pay the minimum wage? So as opposed to focusing on the minimum wage itself, why don't we look at the welfare of the Nigerian workers? Why don't we look at ensuring that the federal government provides things like housing, transportation, at least to lessen the burden on Nigerians?
I mean, he said it right. He said it right. You see, what really takes money off the people are things like transport, food, access to quality schools, and things like that. Food alone now takes over 60%. So that's why you see in other parts of the world, it's not that they end extreme, but government create buffers across food lines, across other lines, and things like that. So those are the things we now have to look at and see how can we create those buffers. If we don't get any, that's bad reality. We don't get anywhere. Because even if you are earning a million naira and cost of inflation is so high and there are no buffers around food and other things, you will still be using that 1 million naira to chase the very few goods. And that's what inflation is all about. You're using a lot of money to chase very few goods.
All right. Yesterday we saw Banex. Banex is a shopping complex here in Abuja. It's a major shopping complex here in Abuja. It was shut down after there was an assault on soldiers. I don't know if you saw that video where some Nigerians in the area were beating up two soldiers because they went to get a phone. Even though we don't really know the details of what exactly transpired, Nigerians have this ability or this behavior of attacking uniformed men in whatever means, in whatever situations, right? Nigerians were saying, okay, did you find out what the soldiers did to warrant that particular attack? But when it comes to things like this, the uniform, the place of Nigeria, because this is a property of Nigeria at this point, why can't it be respected by Nigerians and then find
I
a way?
totally condemn the beating and the hurting of uniform men. I even totally condemn the beating of anybody. Even if you have a squabble with a customer over a phone, it should not resort to beating and hurting. But I also condemn closing of Banex Plaza by the medical. Because now you are depriving other people of their life. Two wrongs can never make a right. Simple.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Rufai, for your time this morning. I appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm sorry I joined a bit late. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Thank you, and have a good day.
Have a good one.
All right. We're still also looking at. I forgot to ask him that. We're looking at a couple more days to May 29th, and we're going to be seeing 1 year of this particular administration in office. What exactly is your rating of this present administration? Some people have nothing but high praises for this administration, that they are doing well and they will continue to do well. What do you think about it? We are, after all, the voice of the people, and you have the opportunity, you have a platform to let your voices be heard, and let's know what you think about this particular situation. How would you rate this government in terms of employment, in terms of the policies that they've been making so far, the removal of fuel subsidy? I mean, it was one thing that a lot of Nigerians were proud of. Okay, you removed subsidy, which is something that a lot of presidents have been trying to do since time immemorial. But we're now seeing issues surrounding that fuel subsidy removal, where people are coming out to say that the subsidy at the back end wasn't really removed. So who is lying? Who's doing what to whom at this point? Well, let your voices be heard on Voice of the People Abuja. It's the number is 0700 010 961 961 0700 010 961 961. I'll go and pay some bills. When I come back, we'll be speaking with Mr. Larry Ogorego. So keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for staying tuned. This is still Voice of the People, 96.1 FM. Like I said before we went on a break, you can join our YouTube live. It is at Voice of the People Abuja. You can also join us live in the studio as well with our phone numbers and WhatsApp platform 0700 010 961 961 0700 010 961 961. We have Mr. Larry on the phone. Good morning, Mr. Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Casey. How are we today?
We're doing good. We're doing good. All right. Let's start with there's news that the Port Harcourt refinery will begin operations in July. Earlier, when I spoke with Rufai, he said until he sees the fuel, he will not believe anything anyone has to say. I guess was once bitten, twice shy at this point.
The truth is that, Rufai said until he sees the fuel. Me, it's until I see the fuel and I verify that it's coming from Port Harcourt refinery, that it was refined there. Because I can see fuel that... I'm not joking. You see, that if I see the fuel, I will go and verify that it's actually not just that the tanker drove out of that place, but that it was refined there. That is when I will take the matter to heart. The truth is that we've lost confidence in what they tell us, and that is sad, very sad. Well, we have to keep our fingers crossed, maybe our hands all together crossed until we verify that the fuel is coming from there come July.
Mr. Larry, some people were saying that this was the Hail Mary that we needed to at least bring a reduction in the price of the pump price per liter of petrol. But when I asked Rufai earlier, he said there's not going to be much of a difference if whether the refinery works or not. There isn't going to be much of a difference as regards how much we are buying the fuel, because I mean there's a lot of issues regarding that. We know the dollar has a part to play. We know that there's a lot of issues regarding that, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Will the coming of the Port Harcourt refinery really change things? Is it a game changer for the oil sector?
The first question we need to ask is how much PMS are we going to be getting from Port Harcourt refinery? How much petrol was the volume?
According to them, they said it's 210,000 barrels per day.
That's the point. So how much of our national consumption can it feed? That is the simple question. And then how consistency is the supply going to be? Because we've heard about turnaround maintenance before and all of those things that after the whole maintenance, you hear that it's producing at 60% capacity, then after 30% capacity. I don't know how you have a refinery and it's producing at 40%, 30%. So what happened to the other capacity that is not working? So if you look at the volume that we get from Port Harcourt refinery and then look at other factors that contributes to the determination of the pump price of petroleum products, we find out that it's not really going to make any difference. I'm not even looking at significant difference. It's not going to make any difference. If we are going to talk about making a difference in the pump price, then we have to do certain critical things. One is that we have to get all our refineries working. Two is that we have to ensure that we find a way to supply oil to domestic refineries in such a way that it will be cushioned from the fluctuations of the international market. Now, this suggestion I made is prone to corruption. But if it is properly managed outside of corruption, and we are able to ramp up our production of crude oil, what will happen is that, yes, we can bring down the price. The way I explain this thing is clear. You can't expect to have access to bread as much as the family that has a bakery. It is sacrilege that a family will have a bakery and not be able to eat bread. That's what's happening to Nigeria. We're supposed to have a bakery. We're supposed to have wheat, have all the ingredients right there in our house, but we can't eat bread. And people that are supposed to buy bread from us are actually eating better quality bread and eating it at will. So it begins to make you wonder what is exactly wrong with us. So if we want to to bring down the price of petroleum products, especially petrol, diesel, and kerosene, we have to look at all of these factors. We have to design solutions and implement them. And most importantly, also manage greed and corruption. Because if we don't, anything you design will be sabotaged because people want to make money. Like they say, we want to reap where we didn't sow. In fact, sometimes we don't even go to the farm at all, but we want to reap. And that's one of the major problems we have in this country.
All right, moving on to another story here. Jonathan, the past president rather, Goodluck Jonathan, he has lent his voice in this face-off between Wike and Fubara, talking about the fact that it's destabilizing. It can destabilize the entire Niger Delta in this particular situation. Mr. Larry, is there anything that anyone can do at this point to impress upon Enrique to sheath his sword in this fight? Is there anything? Because a lot of people are saying that he has a big ego.
I think what can happen and should happen is that men of goodwill and of influence like Goodluck Jonathan should get into this matter with commitment and with integrity. What has happened to this problem is that we do not have anybody who is willing to tell truth to power. If we have people who have the integrity, reputation, and then access to Mr. President and to other stakeholders, they can actually take it upon themselves to speak to the power brokers to get Wike to back down and leave this guy alone. But then that will take a high level of commitment, and that will take actually managing the process in a delicate way so that you are not misunderstood. We don't have too many leaders who are willing to make sacrifice for Nigeria. While I commend Mr. Goodluck Jonathan for what he said, that's our ex-president, I think he can do more than talk. Considering that these are men who go to other countries to help them resolve disputes, as I mean our ex-sets of states, they can also help us resolve disputes by rising above the politics and taking clear positions, not necessarily in public domain, not to get media attention. Go to Mr. President. Mr. President, this is a crisis too many. Can we resolve it? That is, call Wike, call this person. Let us sit down, that's closed door meeting, and talk to them like elders and insist that this madness should stop. Let politics be on the platform of popular participation. If the people have elected Fubara, whether you supported him or not, the important is that he has been elected. So why don't you just, if you want to have influence, find other ways to influence the people. I mean, lead them, make life good for them, even as Minister of FCT. Retain your relevance if you want to, but let this man be the governor. You can't have two governors at the center. You can't have a surrogate governor. You can't, I mean, there's only one governor. So I think we need people who will commit their time and resources to solving this problem, and without allowing politics to color their positions, that they should try to solve the problem on the basis of their love for the people. Because these two elephants are fighting and the people are suffering. And it also shows how much love Wike has for his people as a person. They say that love covers a multitude of sins. Assuming Fubara has sinned without conceding that he has, let us even assume without conceding that Fubara sinned against him. They say that Fubara must respect Wike. Let us assume without conceding that Fubara has not respected him enough. Why not let him, for the love of his people, let this thing go? Let him just watch Fubara perform. If Fubara performs well, fine. We'll clap for him. If he fails, Wike can now say, I told you, I made a mistake. You know, so I think the elders should commit beyond words and platitudes. They should commit and drive this process. There are some people Wike cannot ignore, no matter how stubborn he is. Mr. President appointed him. There are some people who can influence Mr. President. Nobody is an island. But unless those people commit to putting pressure where it matters, this crisis will get to a crescendo, and then maybe at some point there'll be a knockout and we'll have some peace.
All right. In a very interesting turn of events yesterday, the Minister of Power was locked out of the ministry's building, and the members of the National Union of Electricity Employees and Senior Staff Association of Electricity and Allied Companies on Monday stopped business activities at the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Power here in Abuja. And other workers of the ministry also were not able to access the powerhouse building in Abuja here. I mean, we know that the president is set to receive the scorecard of ministers here, just to see their performances so far. And one particular ministry that has been dragged like small generator is this particular, ironically, is this particular Ministry of Power, because of just how epileptic our power supply in the past 1 year has been. We have seen a lot of failures of the national grid and all of that, and it doesn't seem to be looking up, because when the year started, they were saying, oh, there was no enough, we're not producing enough electricity because the rains were not falling, the turbines were not moving the way they should, and all of that. Now the rains have started falling, and we're still seeing issues with electricity. Is it that there's no minister that can actually handle that ministry for us?
It's beyond the minister and the ministry. First of all, for you to have electricity, you have to generate it, transmit it, and distribute it. We have problems along all the
three different
stages.
different
levels of yes, giving us electricity. We have problems with generation. We don't generate enough, really. We have problems with transmission, and then we have problems with distribution. We have serious infrastructure problems. We even have security problems. In recent times, some of the transmission facilities have been vandalized. So we have genuine problems. But that does not mean that we cannot create genuine solutions. You know, when you have hydra-headed problems, you have to come up with holistic solutions, and you need to think in a creative manner. But most importantly, for us to solve the power problem, the minister must have the unalloyed support of Mr. President and all the other stakeholders, because it's a hydra-headed problem. Let me give you an example. When you come to the end of distribution, you find out that people are not just happy. Apart from the fact that they are not getting power, they are paying for power that they are not getting because they don't have meter. So we are not just complaining that we don't have power. We are paying for darkness, and that is not good enough. So we need to isolate the most critical problems. For instance, what's our maximum generation? Then how do we transmit that maximum to the different points of consumption? And then how do we ensure that when we transmit them to the different points of consumption, that distribution is efficient? If, for instance, the transformer is overloaded, the people won't have power, even though you have generated power. So we need to isolate the most critical points of this problem, what we call the bottlenecks, and see how we can deal with them. I think we need to do more thinking in this country. I've said it repeatedly. We don't think enough. We throw money at problems. For instance, we're just talking about meters. They say federal government has given boa, we throw dollars at the problem, we throw naira at the problem. And the problems don't go away. We threw $16 billion at the power problem under Obasanjo. It stays there. Because we didn't think the process through. We are just hauling money, throwing money at the problem, and the problem still consumes the money and stays there. So I think we need to appoint a minister that can sit down and think and carry people along and be sincere about our problems. Why can't we have meters, for crying out loud? What is the rocket science about giving people ordinary meter? In Senate claims, it is the person who gives me the power that should meter me. I shouldn't pay for it because that is your infrastructure. You use it to check what I've bought from you. You know, asking me to pay for meter is like asking me to pay for the petrol dispenser and the petrol station. You own the petrol, you dispense it. My job is to pay you after you have dispensed it. I'm not supposed to pay for your dispenser. I'm supposed to pay for the petrol. So if you are selling power to me, I pay you for the power, not for the cables, not for the meter, not for transformer, not for maintenance. But here we are charged money when our transformer blows out. Illegally, it's illegal, we know. But people contribute money because they say that if they don't contribute, they stay in darkness forever. So I think we need to get to that point where we tell ourselves the truth about the power problem. And one of the major things that has colored our power problem is corruption. The sector is so corrupt. In fact, any sector you find big money is corrupt. Then you have big corruption. That big money seems to go hand in hand with big corruption. Look at the petroleum industry, big corruption. Power industry, big corruption. Mining industry, big corruption. Anywhere you find big money, you find big corruption. And that's one of the things we must find an incorruptible person who is also creative and who can relate with Mr. President. And I also want to assume that Mr. President will support that person to be incorruptible. Because if the powers that be will also send people to him to influence him or twist his arm to do corruption and do nepotism and all of that, it won't work. These problems can be solved. It's not rocket science. I mean, look at what Egypt did with power in a very short time. We're talking about power. We're talking about hydropower, rain falling, when we have so much sun in the north. We are talking about gas, and then we are talking about maybe other sources of power, like using the black oil to fire the gas, the power generators. But those things are not the only options we have. One of the things we should do is to be creative. If we have gas in abundance in the south, then we should use predominantly gas in the south and surrounding areas. If we have a lot of sun in the north, we should ask ourselves, how do we supply energy to clusters or villages and small towns using solar, so that we don't have to drag cables all over the place and people go and vandalize the cable. And then areas where we have other, for instance, where we have water that flows. So how do we do hydro to supply those areas? And that will reduce the cost of transmission. That's what I call long distance transmission, because you provide power in clusters. This thing needs creativity. Unfortunately, we want money. So every problem we have, we want to appropriate money and claim that our problem is money. The first thing you hear when you mention a problem in Nigeria is that it will take 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion to solve this problem, without anybody thinking about the solution. So the power problem can be fixed, but then we need a minister that will be creative, that will be bold enough to tell the truth about power, and that will be able to rise above corruption. Also assuming that the leaders will not force him to become corrupt because of the money that is in the sector.
All right, we have about 8 days to May 29th, and we're looking at the president clocking 1 year in office. And we know that as much as possible, we'll soon be hearing different things, that we are doing this, we are doing that, we are doing this, just so that Nigerians, they make it look like, I'm trying to phrase my sentence in a way that it's not. So, if you have situations where Nigerians do not feel like you are working and you are doing the things that you ought to do in the space of 1 year, because Alex Otti showed us that it is possible to make changes be felt within the space of 6 months. It's possible, right? And so far, we've seen a lot of changes turning out for the bad, quote unquote, for Nigerians, because we're looking at subsidy removal, and who's feeling the brunt of it? Nigerians. We're looking at electricity, Nigerians again. So we're looking at floating of the naira. Nigerians are feeling it, because you have politicians who spend dollars on their whims, right? So in this particular point, what exactly is your rating of this administration so far?
For us to properly rate the administration, we need time. But I think I'll run through it. First of all, there are two ways to rate the administration. Most of the time, we rate administrations based on what I choose to call the outcomes that we can feel. So say they have fixed the road, they have given us more power, and all of that. But see, there are different aspects of rating a government. If you go to hospital, you rate the performance of the doctor on the basis of how well you are when you are leaving the hospital. Am I correct?
Yes.
You are not going to rate the hospital on the basis of, oh, they gave me this drug, it's expensive, the hospital looks very nice. They said all of those things are factors, but the ultimate solution that you went there to look for is solution to your sickness. So I begin to ask myself, what are the things that Nigeria is grappling with as a nation? One is corruption. So we are sick. And one of the illnesses we are suffering from is corruption. So how have they done with corruption? Not very well. They can do a lot better. I won't have time to get into specifics, but you see, for instance, when a minister is suspended because of alleged corruption. And we have not heard anything about it for months. That doesn't speak well for the administration. And I've always said that if you want to fight corruption, and you don't fight small corruption, you don't fight systemic corruption, we still have to pay money to get driver's licenses. We have to pay money to policemen at junctions and checkpoints in public glare, and they give us change. You are not fighting corruption, even if you are arresting the big politicians, because it is that policeman that collects 200 naira at the checkpoint that eventually collect 2 million and eventually practically swallow allocations to police stations across the country when it becomes commissioner IG. We have to fight corruption. They have not done well there. And then we have that is just more change for you to, go and take care of yourselves. That they select us. We don't want to hear that kind of thing. It's in bad taste. We are still wasting resources. And then you look at the area of nation building, which is one of the most fundamental problems we have. Nigerians don't believe in Nigeria anymore. If you hear the things Nigerians say about Nigeria, you shudder. And it's terrible. Nigerians have lost confidence in Nigeria. It's not just a matter of believing in their tribe and all of that. It's a matter of the fact that they're just disillusioned. So we need to rebuild the confidence of the people in the nation. We need to create some kind of a sense of nationhood afresh. And for us to do that, there has to be exemplary leadership. When the Buhari Diabo regime came, they did a promo about Andrew, don't check out, because then Nigerians were actually emigrating. Andrew, don't check out. And it was a call for people to stay back and build Nigeria. And when you looked at the body language of that administration then, the discipline, the austere style of the administration, they were not ostentatious. They were actually trying to walk their talk. They were looking inward. A lot of new technology was developed in different parts of the nation. It was amazing. People, after some time, started thinking Nigeria. And then you begin to ask yourself, what is the place of National Orientation Agency now? Nigerians are disillusioned. They don't believe in Nigeria. We have an agency that we spend large amounts of money on every year, and we are not allowing them to function. Or maybe, I don't know if they're incapable of functioning, but we need to actually get Nigerians to believe in Nigeria again. On that score, they are not doing well. And of course, we can now look at specific managing the economy, managing security, managing the economy. You can see that the dollar and naira, they are aspiring like music and fury. That is, it's been neither here nor there. We are waiting for who will win this battle. But then, I think that somehow we have not been doing enough planning on our own to solve our economic problems. We are taking instructions from different bodies and then mixing it up with our own ideas. So we are not getting clear results. That is what I think. And then managing security, we are not really managing it. We are responding. So they kidnap, we go to rescue. They kidnap again, we rescue. Bandits strike, we look for them. That is not managing security. Managing security means that we have to do needs assessment, look at where the problems are, and creatively deploy solutions. And the solutions must include mobilizing the people and equipping them to become part of the security system for their own communities. And of course, the managing power and electricity is something we have already talked about. And then leading leaders. How is this administration leading leaders? What is the relationship between Mr. President and governors? How is he able to mobilize the governors to key into the overall vision of the presidency to, for instance, make Nigerians proud of Nigeria, make Nigerians stop living and start thinking of investing in Nigeria, staying here. I had a program on a radio station, and the presenter asked me, must young people out to make it? That was the theme of the program. And by the time I finished speaking, I gave one simple example that people sometimes raise 5 million naira to travel abroad. But by the time you raise 5 million, you're already a rich person. There are several Nigerians who started business with less than that, and they become multimillionaires. So if you have 5 million and are planning to travel abroad, is it that because you're disillusioned or because you feel that you can't make it here, which is a mindset and all of that? When I finished speaking, somebody called and said, I'm not going anywhere again. I've decided to sell my dad's property, which he bequeathed to me to travel abroad, but today is an eye-opener. I got 3 such calls, and then I started mentoring 9 persons who said, we are not traveling anywhere again. What is government doing? People are traveling not because they want to travel. I mean, if you have 6 million, 10 million, and you want to run away for economic reasons, it means your head is not properly wired. Somebody needs to help you rewire your head because you're already a rich man by Nigerian standards. Yeah. But if you have other problems, security, you don't believe in the nation anymore, then I don't see why you shouldn't travel. So the government can do better. I'm not even using standard parameters. What we call standard parameters? Oh, they tarred the road and they passed the front of my house. That road I've been waiting for 10 years. They've tarred the child. They're doing well. No, that's not assessment. No. But maybe one day we'll have time to look at proper assessment of governance, because even educated Nigerians, even our so-called elites, do not even assess performance of leaders properly. Because they don't have the set of tools for assessing performance. For instance, somebody fixed a road and you are clapping for the person. Did you ask for the cost of the road? Is there transparency in the fixed road? If he uses the money for 300 kilometers of road to do 80 kilometers, is that governance? No. You can't for him, no. When you send a boy on an errand, then the boy comes back to ask him, what did you buy? Where is the change? How did you go? Then politicians on errand, we have a right to ask them. If they refuse to tell us, they are not good leaders, no matter what they accomplish. Whether you are Mr. Project or not is irrelevant. If you do projects for me and refuse to tell me how you use my money, then something is wrong with you. So there's so much to say about governance and leadership. Our leaders don't even understand the concept of leadership. Most of our leaders lead for their stomachs and their pocket, and for them. Nepotism is on the increase. Look at what is happening with judiciary. You are the wife of a governor, a politician, or the nephew, or niece, or son, or whatever. You become a judge if you want to. Who does that? While I concede that people should not be denied opportunities because of their filial relationship with people in power, I also insist that there must be a transparent method that will enable us to know that all of these people who are jumping into the judiciary that are related to the political power are qualified,
deserving.
that are there on the basis of merit. But there is no such system. There's no such evidence. It's just a matter of put his name, put her name, put. And that's why the judiciary is where it is.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Larry. It's been, even though we don't have time to go into that, maybe we'll pick one of these days, maybe on the 29th, if it's a work day, we'll pick that day and just try as much as we can to look at this particular situation and see how it's affecting us as Nigerians. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Larry.
It's my pleasure. I hope that the leaders are listening to the voice of the people, but I also hope that the people themselves are listening to the voice of the people, because the truth is that the power of the people, when you come to look at it, is far stronger than the people in power. So if the people come together, they are more influential than the people in power, but they have to come together. So they should also be listening to the voice of the people. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening to VOP 96.1 FM. My time is fast spent. I have to skedaddle out of the studio and let the Sports Bit crew come here and let you know every single sports news that is needed at this point in time. My name is Gesiere Agua. Good morning to you and have yourselves a wonderful day at work or whatever it is that you're doing today. I'll be back at 9 a.m. with news around Abuja, and then we'll have the business around town, business today, and then from then on we'll still have the morning ride proper. I've got gist for you today. Trust me, you want to stick around for that conversation. This is the voice of the people, 96.1 FM. Good morning.